Ms. Macbeth again, and so we are in week 3, and this is a video that is just intended to help you understand just a little bit better how it is that reflexive verbs work. So that's what I'm going to try to talk about just for a few minutes today. I try to make this one shorter than the last one, which ended up being very long, but it was a little bit of a bigger subject. So hopefully we'll be more successful this time. All right, so we're just going to talk very briefly about reflexive verbs. So reflexive verbs are a way in Spanish to indicate that the person doing the action is also the person receiving the action. So it's a way of saying, I'm not just bathing anyone, I am bathing myself, or you are bathing yourself, or he or she is bathing himself, right? So the reflexive part is there to indicate that whoever is doing the action is also receiving the action. So it's like saying, I'm brushing my hair. I'm not brushing someone else's hair. I'm brushing my own hair, or he is brushing his own hair. Reflexive verbs are often used for situations that involve what we think of as the daily routine, right? When we wake up, so in Spanish, right, we can say things like me levanto, me acuesto, me duermo, me despierto, me cepillo, me peino, me arreglo, me alisto. All of these things are talking about elements of the daily routine, right? So whenever we get up in the morning in Spanish, we don't just get up, we get up, we're getting our own physical body up. And so Spanish reflects that, right? It reflects the fact that we are doing something to our own physical body, right? And that's part of what it is that reflexive verbs are doing. So when we say, I get up in the morning, we are saying, I get my own body up. I lift my own body out of bed. I brush my own body's hair. I brush my own body's teeth, right? We are indicating that that action is coming back to us because we are doing that action, right? So that's some of what a reflexive verb indicates. Now, reflexives, right, have what we call a reflexive pronoun. Now, the reflexive pronoun must always match the subject. And why must it match the subject? Because remember, the doer of the action is the receiver of the action. So the subject is the doer of the action, so the pronoun has to match the doer of the action in order to indicate that the same person is doing and receiving the action, right? Do you see what I mean? So those two things have to match up. So I took one verb and I just gave it as an example. This verb is cepillarse. It means to brush. So if I said, yo me cepillo, I'm saying I'm brushing myself, right? Whether it be my teeth or my hair, I'm brushing myself. Tú te cepillas, meaning you are brushing your own self. Él se cepilla, he is brushing his own self. Ella se cepilla, she is brushing her own self, right? Nosotros nos cepillamos, we are brushing our own selves. Vosotros os cepilláis, you all are brushing your own selves. And ellos se cepillan, or ellas se cepillan, they are brushing themselves. So the action is indicating, right, that the doer and the receiver are the same. So it's very important that yo and me be together, tú and te be together, él, ella, usted, and se be together, nosotros and nos be together, vosotros and os be together, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, and se be together, right? Otherwise, the verbs are in the present tense, so they are pretty much conjugated the same as all other present tense verbs. They are just regular, generally. If they are a stem changer like acostarse, then they just operate as a regular stem changing verb. All we're doing, right, is putting a pronoun, which is me, te, se, nos, o, se, in between the yo or the tu or whatever and the verb, right? So we're just adding an extra pronoun, and it's indicating, right, that the person who is doing the action is also receiving the action. So I give a couple of examples over here. Ricardo se acuesta. That's saying Ricardo lies down. But Ricardo's not just lying anybody down, he's lying himself down, his own body. And so we use the se to tell us that Ricardo is laying his own self down. Yo me baño, I bathe, but I'm not just bathing anybody, I'm bathing my own body. So I want to indicate that by saying me. So it would be like saying I bathe my own self, right? Tú te peinas. Peinarse, there's a different word for brushing than there is for combing in Spanish. So peinarse is a word to comb, right, as opposed to brush something. If you say tú te peinas, then it's saying, right, you are combing your own self. You're combing your own hair, or you're combing, that I don't know what else you could comb other than your hair, but you're combing your own body. Now, there are words that can't be reflexive, right? For example, you can't say yo me desayuno, because if you say yo me desayuno, then you're literally saying I eat my own self for breakfast. You're not eating your own body for breakfast. What are you eating? You're eating food, right? So the food is the receiver of the action. You can't say something like yo me leo, because if you say yo me leo, you're saying like I'm physically reading words off of my own body. When you read, you're not reading your body. You are reading a newspaper or an article or a book, right? So the book is receiving the action. So there's some verbs that cannot be reflexive and other verbs that can. Normally, reflexive verbs are indicated by having this little pronoun on the end. So, for example, this verb says cepillarse. If I had another reflexive verb, it would say bañarse, acostarse, right? The se on the end tells me that it's a reflexive verb. Now, in order to make the verb look normal, right, sometimes people recommend taking the se off, right? And then it looks like a normal verb, right? But the se just tells us that the verb is reflexive. Occasionally, there are times when these reflexive verbs are used in their infinitive, right? Like this. I'm going to bathe myself, right? So I'm using it in the infinitive. In this case, you want to change the se to indicate who is doing and receiving the action. So instead of saying yo voy a bañarse, I would say yo voy a bañarme, right? Changing the pronoun to the yo form, indicating that the person that is going to be doing the bathing is me, and also I'm going to be receiving the bathing, right? So the pronoun changes, even though the verb is still in the infinitive. Now, that's a very few and far between cases that happens, but it is still possible. So I hope that has helped you to understand reflexive verbs a little bit better, and it's by no means a comprehensive listing of all the possibilities of reflexive verbs, but it's certainly just a quick summary for you. Reflexive verbs can be found in your book in Chapter 5, and I hope that this has helped you to understand how they work a little bit better. Thanks, and I hope that you're having a great week.